Welcome back, everybody. So today we're going to have the next tasting of beer number 9 in my 2-hop series featuring Cascade and Centennial. Now, I know I've been putting these off a little bit. If you've been following the channel, if you're new to the channel, I would go back and check out the first video on this. But I did make 20 beers overall. I've been saying next tasting because it's on like tasting 5, 6, or 7 of this, but you know, I've talked about this before that when I first started putting these out, some people were like, oh, you should let them age for a year, or save one for a year to see what has happened. And just because of all the small batches I've made, I can't review every one every 30 days. Now, technically I could, but when that video came out, it would be like 2.5, 3 months before that video went up. So what I try and do is review them, then within a week have them up, just so they're fresher, I guess, reviews. So this is the next tasting of beer number 9. This is Centennial Cascade, first Wort hop, FWH. This was bottled on 9/15/2019, 7.12%. This is using 2 pounds 4 ounces of 2-row. For the hop schedule, first Wort hop. So once we start drawing off our mash, we're adding hops, 0.25 ounces of Centennial. Then at 10 minutes left in the boil, 0.25 ounces of Cascade. Then 5 minutes, 0.25 ounces of Centennial. Then we dry hop on day 3 of fermentation with 2.25 ounces of each one. Let's go ahead and get this open, see how it's doing. If I remember correctly, this is probably using one of the big carbonation tablets, so it's just using one. Since I think it was somewhere around batch 15, 16, I did start using the small pearls because I felt that the big ones were just a little too much, and I do use a lot of 22-ounce bottles, and using 2 of those bigger carbonation tablets would be for 24 ounces. And when I was doing that, they were going up pretty quick. I am starting to see this start to take off, so I'm going to go ahead and pour it in here. Obviously, this is unfiltered, and you can kind of tell I do bottle directly out of the fermenter, so I could get hop and trub in there for the most part. Well, we'll see if that goes over. For the most part, I put my hops, I don't put them in a hop bag or anything like that, so I can draw those hop particles from the pellets off into the beer, and I could really see them start stirring up before I started pouring that. So we do have a off-white color head, small and medium bubbles, got a hot piece in there. 2 fingers of head, bubbles on the side are spread apart like bubble wrap. Lots and lots of bubbles. Kind of hazy. I can see the hop pellets pieces, the leaves floating in there. Lots and lots and lots of bubbles. Yeah, just when you're going this old, and if you do see some of your beers, when you open them, they're starting to come out, you might want to think about drinking them all, because the last thing you want is a bottle bomb where the bottle just explodes or it blows the top off. Then you're going to have beer all over the place. So make sure you're looking at your carbonation levels when you're bottling. Obviously in a keg you really don't have to worry about that, and that's kind of why I switched over to a keg. Was I didn't want to keep on mixing the sugar to add to the beer, the priming sugar and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and smell. A little toasted bread. That malt's coming through probably a little bit more than it has in the past. A little floral, a little citrus. Now, from doing all these, from my take on it, that floral is from the Cascade. Most of the time I do get more of a floral aroma and taste out of Cascade, where the Centennial, I get more citrus out of the smell than more grapefruit zest out of the taste. And I think you're seeing both of them in here. I would say, if anything, that citrus is a little higher than the floral, but that toasted malt is in the backbone, which is kind of funny because I know on some of these they've smelt like honey water where that malt has really taken over the beer, and that's not the case in this very much. I do get a little bit more of that toasted bread, toasted malt than I remember getting, but for the most part, I think the hops, at least in this one, have held up over time, even though we're only using one malt in here. So let's go ahead and taste. A little citrus floral at the beginning, goes back, more of a grapefruit zest at the end, grapefruit zest bitterness in there. Aftertaste, as my palate warms up, it's like a warmer, sweet biscuit citrus, if that makes sense. The carbonation level's not that bad. It seems like it's a little thin, but that could just be me. Yeah, that sweet, like toasted citrus floral up front is pretty light compared to that like citrus rind grapefruit bitterness in the back. I'm trying to think if it really tastes like an old beer. Now, is this something that I would be impressed by if this is what this tasted like, when it was young, maybe a month, 2 months after it was bottled? Probably not. If anything, I would say that that bitterness is way too much. Like, you need to add more malt or add a specialty malt to try and balance that out. That bitterness in back doesn't match that malt that's I'm getting in front, even though I'm getting a little toasted bread. The citrus in there almost reminds me of, like, I want to drink this during the summer, but it's got like the bitterness of like a West Coast IPA in there. And I'm guessing it's just because it's old. I don't think it had that much bitterness before. And if you want, I do try and keep up on it, but if you go to 31stbrewing.com and you can go under the recipes and you can find this, and I've got it all listed out, like the color, the smell, the taste, the overall for each tasting that I do. Yeah, I think this has held up well, surprisingly well. Obviously, the carbonation is a little too much. Looking at it, tasting it, I would say it's fine. You're not getting any alcohol. It seems like in the aftertaste that floral is kind of building a little, but I'm still getting a lot of that rind bitterness in there. But yeah, overall, for almost a year old, we're almost a year old. This is August. Yeah, I think it's held up well. We'll see if that bitterness kicks up even more, because I do see that in some of the beers, which is kind of weird. I guess the alpha acid level is supposed to go down, but maybe that beta, even though it's like usually half of the alpha or somewhere around there, it seems like that starts taking over maybe. Excuse me, and that's what's upping the bitterness in these, because I do know one of my old ones that we did a review on, my black IPA that turned into a stout, but it really had a lot of bitterness in there. So maybe those beta acids are a little bit more potent than the alpha acids, so over time it does crank it up. But we'll keep going until they're out and see how they do. So if you enjoyed this review, check some more out over here, and until next time, happy brewing.